If you are still wearing a COVID mask in 2024, you are in one of three categories, and the first one is idiot. This is Can't Cancel Rob Smith. All right, if you, in May of 2024, if you are still wearing a COVID mask outside, on the streets, in your car, wherever, you belong in one of three categories. And the first one is idiot, first of all. So let's get into the first category. If you are still walking around with a COVID mask on in 2024, outside, you have bought into the lie of the pandemic. You have bought into the lie of COVID. You have bought into everything that the federal government and the left and the Democrats were trying to shove down all of our throats for years. You've bought into this. If you are still wearing a mask to this day, if you still think that they are going to protect you from anything, you have bought into this and you're an idiot. If you think that COVID is still a thing, you have bought into this and you are dumb. If you think that COVID killed 1 million people, you are again misinformed and dumb. So if I see you walking down the street with a COVID mask on, I know what idiot to avoid. All right, that's the first category. The first category is idiots. So you are stupid, you are indoctrinated, you are brainwashed, you are a sheep, you are still living in a state of perpetual 2020. And if you are still living in that state, I feel sorry for you. I feel genuine pity for you. Because if you're still walking around the street with a mask on in 2024 and you are still afraid of COVID and you're talking about new variants and you're still living in this world, I'm going to look around. I'm going to look for the Ukraine flag pin on your lapel. I'm going to look for the kafaya that's in your pocket because you're about to go freaking protest for Palestine. I'm looking for your vaccination card that you're probably still running around carrying because you probably think that you still need that to get into places. It was all lunacy. Everybody knows at this point that the COVID virus and the pandemic and all of that stuff was about nothing more than Democrats winning an election. We know this. I am not even going to get into all of the reporting that has been done over the past 4 years to where even, the libs that listen to me, even your beloved Washington Post, your beloved New York Times, all of your beloved little liberal legacy media sources have reported on what a sham a lot of it was. So if you're in that first category of people that are still wearing a mask in 2024, you're just an idiot. All right, so that's category number one. Category number two are people that actually have health issues. There are some people that are actually severely immunocompromised. There are some people that are older people that still wear masks because they are elderly, because they are immunocompromised, because they believe that it's going to protect them because if they get COVID, it's not going to be good. All right? So those are the people that I have genuine sympathy for. Those are the people that I have actual empathy for. And when I bring those people up, I have to remind you that those people are such an infinitesimal part of the population. When I walk around, whether I'm walking around wherever it is that I'm at whatever point in time, I'm like the air, I'm everywhere. All right. So if I'm walking around and I see a young, healthy human being that's walking around wearing a mask, I know that they're an idiot. I know that they're not immunocompromised. I know that they're just a brainwashed sheep that is still living in that world, that is still living in the moment of COVID and that ridiculous era in which we were all driven crazy by our leaders and by the people that were in charge. They're still living in that moment. And so before I get to the third category, because the third category is the most important, the third category of people that are still wearing masks in 2024 is the most important because this is the one that I think that truly physically affects all of us. Before I get to that, I'm going to make a casual observation that the vast majority of people that I still see in 2024 wearing a mask are African American. Everybody that I see, the one that triggered all of this, I'm going viral on TikTok right now. I made a little 38-second video about I'm in Miami. I'm walking down the street. I see a heavy-set, youngish looking black woman wearing a mask to go up to order, her latte. I'm sipping a latte in the video. And I make this 38-second video, just, stream of thought, whatever. And I put it on TikTok at Can't Cancel Rob. I put it on TikTok and it just goes crazy. It just goes nuts. And at this point right now, it's probably going to be more than that by the time you guys get to it. At this point, it's got like 500,000 views. It's by far one of the biggest things that I've ever done on TikTok. 38-second video, stream of conscious. This video has attracted all of the crazies that I did not know still existed. I did not know that people still existed in this space. I did not know that people still walked around afraid of the air. I did not know that in 2024, people still thought that the air killed them, but here we are. And so all of these people have found me on TikTok at Can't Cancel Rob, and they are telling me all of these stories about how 1 million people died from COVID, and why is it bothering you? Why can't you just live and let live? And by the way, these are the same people that basically wanted to banish anybody that didn't want to take that vaccine to, I don't know, Hades or some other, these are people that did not want anybody that did not want to put that vaccine in their body allowed in polite society. They didn't want them in bars. They didn't want them in restaurants. They wanted them out. And this is the crowd that is all of a sudden saying, well, you should just let people be. You should just, you just let people live. I'm glad that they've come to that conclusion, 4 years later after they've destroyed countless people's lives who didn't want to take the vaccine. Now, they want to live and let live. Now they've learned freedom. They've got their freedom to wear the mask. And so all of these people have found me on TikTok. And I think it's really funny. The thing about social media, and I've said this before, the thing about having a social media presence and all that stuff is you can turn it off. Like people say mean things about me on the internet all day, every day. There's people that live on these platforms. Like this thing, I'm on this thing not after 5 p.m. So have at it. Call me all the things on social media. I'll probably be somewhere, I don't know, doing something fabulous. But all of them have found me. And going into that TikTok, and I really want you, if you're watching this, I really want you to go to TikTok, follow me at Can't Cancel Rob. I really want you to go read these comments because it is just a window into the crazy that I didn't know still existed. I literally did not know that people were still afraid of the air. I did not know that people were still walking around being this, I just did not know that this was still a thing, but it is. It is very much still a thing. And so all those crazies are there. They exist. Beats the hell out of me where they've been hiding over the past couple of years. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the left and the Democrats are trying to figure out another way to try to get more mass mail-in voting and all this other stuff. Doesn't seem like it's working. Also, it doesn't seem like the Palestine stuff is working out for them either, because the Palestine protesters are just pissing everybody off and they can't use them for anything. But anyway, the third category of people that are still wearing COVID masks in 2024 are criminals. Criminals wear COVID masks in 2024. Every viral video that you see of some horrific crime that is going on in one of these Dem-run craphole cities is committed by somebody that is wearing a face mask, by somebody whose face is 70% covered. There was a horrific video, and I dealt with this in the last podcast, about the woman, and I believe it was the Bronx, who the perp came from behind her, wearing a mask, mind you, threw a belt around her neck, yanked her in between two cars, and sexually assaulted her. At this point, they have not identified that person because, surprise, surprise, 70% of his face was covered by a mask. All right? And so there's this normalization of mask wearing, particularly in the large cities, that makes me feel uncomfortable, that makes me feel like my safety can be at risk, because these people are still walking around wearing these masks. I don't know. When I see somebody walking towards me with a mask, not the fat black girl in the mask that inspired this rant, not her. She is a threat to nothing but a double quarter pounder with cheese. But when I see the average, some young, strong, healthy looking, tall man walking down the street with a mask on covering his face, I'm thinking twice. I got my eye on you because I don't know what you're trying to do, who you're trying to rob, where you just came from, whatever. And that's the reality of the situation. And that is real talk. That thing that you feel when you're in public and somebody is coming up towards you or somebody's behind you and something doesn't feel right, that's the gut feeling that you should always respond to. Because if it doesn't feel right, then something is not right. There are so many stories of people that have been victims of violence because they ignored that feeling that there was a physical threat to them because of political correctness for whatever reason, and then they end up being victims of violence, right? So now it's to the point where if I see somebody coming towards me with a mask, I think that they're a criminal. I've got my eyes on them. And the vast majority of these crimes that we see happen, you can look at these videos. They come out every single day from these cities, from New York, from DC, from LA, from Philly, from Detroit, all run by Democrats. All of these people are wearing masks when they engage in criminal behavior. So the third category, if you are still wearing a mask in 2024, it is because you are a criminal and you are seeking to do harm to someone and not have your face seen. Look at all these pro-Palestine protesters. Look at all the Antifa protests. Look at all the Antifa people. Look at all those people. We have normalized covering up 70% of your face so that people can get away with mischief. These are chaos agents. These are the chaos agents that are on the streets protesting. These are the chaos agents that are protesting for Palestine. These are the chaos agents that are doing all of this stuff and masking. And by the way, when you want to talk about masking and you want to talk about what the agendas are, you want to talk about what's really coming from the top down, I think that all of this stuff was a part of that agenda because we all know, and this is a proven fact, we know that there are powers that be, particularly at very high levels on the left, that seek to bail these people out. None other than Kamala Harris tweeted out a GoFundMe for the people that were protested for destroying Minneapolis. If you follow me on Twitter at Rob Smith Online, I shared a video that I took from Minneapolis in 2020 when I visited that place after it was destroyed by the BLM riots. So fundamentally, the only people that are wearing a mask in 2024 are idiots, who I have zero sympathy for, the immunocompromised, who of course I have sympathy for, I'm not heartless, and criminals, who I also have zero sympathy for. So we're getting to a point in a society where we need to start denormalizing mask wearing. This is not something that is normal. COVID is not a thing. It is over. And there are very few people that are walking down the streets in this day and age that are wearing a mask that are immunocompromised. Most of these people are wearing a mask because they want to conceal their identity, because they are chaos agents and they want to do mischief. And if you think I'm lying, why don't you go look around Twitter, look around YouTube, look around the internet, look at all these horrific crime videos that are coming from these large cities. And what you will realize is that what 90% of them have in common is that somebody's wearing a mask when they commit crimes. So we need to denormalize mask wearing. Anybody that is still seriously wearing a mask in 2024 is either an idiot, the immunocompromised, which are very few of them, or a criminal. The United States military is in trouble, and I feel like people do not understand the level to which the U.S. military is in trouble, from recruitment to the multi-million-dollar DEI initiatives that are destroying troop readiness, towards there's so many different things. Now, I want to point you to this report that came out, and this report came out some time ago. And I was always very curious as to why this didn't get more attention. One of the things that annoys me about some of our elected officials sometimes, particularly on the Republican side, is that they're not good at communications. They have these entire staffs of people that are supposed to be running their communications, and they have no idea, for whatever reason, how to effectively get these messages out there via social media. So this was a report that was put out, I believe, by Chip Roy and Marco Rubio. Woke warfighters, how political ideology is weakening America's military. And there are some pretty stunning facts in here. And one of the facts is this, and one of the things that they get into in this report is critical race theory, and how the Biden administration's Department of Defense is absolutely obsessed with critical race theory. And I think that as we, am heading out of military member appreciation month, heading out of Memorial Day, all of that other stuff, I think that we don't talk enough about our United States military, about how we're in trouble, and about how I believe that America is at one of the weakest points we've been militarily since I can remember. But here's a couple little facts about the Department Administration's, the DOD's obsession with critical race theory. So, and this from the report, the Biden administration wants to indoctrinate a new generation of military leadership at the U.S. service academies with critical race theory. And there's a couple of points that are very interesting. An admiral told midshipmen at the Naval Academy that they need to read How to Be an Anti-Racist, from Ibram X. Kendi, one of the race hustling grifters of the left, real name Henry Rogers, by the way. A book that teaches, quote, the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination, that capitalism is racist, and that people, by virtue of their race, are inherently oppressive or privileged, while others are inherently victimized or oppressed. So this is teaching that is being taught at the highest levels of our United States military. And I will tell you, as a military veteran, that messaging is completely destructive. It is destructive from a military readiness standpoint. It is destructive from the standpoint of, if you're serving in the military, I served 5 years in U.S. infantry, did 2 Middle Eastern deployments, 1 deployment to Iraq during the Operation Iraqi Freedom. If you are telling, and granted, this is at the service academy, but don't think that this stuff trickles down. If you are telling soldiers that are supposed to serve with one another that they need to be looking at each other differently based on their race, if you are telling the black soldiers that you need to be looking at the white soldiers as inherently oppressive, whether they are people to your left or your right, or whether they are people that outrank you at higher levels, you are fundamentally weakening the partnership, the brotherhood. I use brotherhood because infantry was all male. You are fundamentally weakening the brotherhood and partnership that you need to actually go out and execute the mission. When I was in the military and I was going on missions with the people that I was serving with, were there racial differences? Absolutely there were. Were there some racist people in my platoon? And I'm talking about dropping in bombs racist? Absolutely. Like, that's the reality of the situation. And I'm not somebody that just pretends that there's no racism in America anymore. Like, it was there. At the same point in time, I remember very, very specifically, and I think I wrote a little bit about this in my book. It's called Always a Soldier. You can go get it on Amazon. I remember that there were truly racist people. And I'm talking about like dropping N-bombs, dyed in the wool, like that N-word better not look at me, like really racist. And when that happened, I remember specifically them being corrected by other white soldiers. I remember other white soldiers like taking them to the side and being like, you can't say that. Like, this is not, like, we're just not doing that here, right? And so they would self-correct all of that stuff. And the reason that I brought that up is because I would imagine the infinitesimal amount of people that enter the military that are actually racist. I would wonder if that was the era like it is now, where they have to go to all these diversity trainings and they have to go to all of this stuff that is going to make them think, or, supposed to make all of us believe that they're bad and they're oppressors and they're all of that other stuff. I think that this stuff does the opposite of what it's intended. I think that it actually increases strife between the races. Like, I really, truly do. This is honestly 100% what I believe. I believe that we were likely at a stronger place, race relations wise, 15 years ago than we are right now. Because 15 years ago, we didn't have all the CRT stuff. 15 years ago, we didn't have all the social media. 15 years ago, we didn't have all of these things that were telling us how we were supposed to see each other and how we were supposed to interact with each other based on the color of our skin. When I was serving, all of this stuff wasn't there. So we dealt with each other as men. We corrected each other as men, right? But now this is different. And that's only really one example of this. And I mean, this stuff goes on and on and on. All right. About how the Biden administration is promoting diversity and inclusion. By the way, they're paying for the gender reassignment surgery, sex reassignment surgery for the trans soldiers. Like, all of this stuff is weakening the military. And I'm going to do there's something problematics that I'm putting together right now that is probably in the final stages of doing this. And this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, because this is something that's going to be purely and exclusively focused on the military, because I do believe that in the media space, whether it's conservative or liberal, whatever you want to call it, there's not enough of a focus on what's really going on in the military, right? It's just not really talked about. And I'm putting this thing together and I'm excited about it because it's going to be an opportunity to do that. That being said, all of this stuff is fundamentally weakening the United States military. This is not making America safer. It's not making America stronger. And by the way, the real bros, the real men that have always fought and died and served and protected this country, the real bros, the infantry bros, the special forces bros, all of that other stuff, these dudes don't want to enlist right now. These guys don't want anything to do with this military under Joe Biden, because they know all it is a bunch of woke stuff. All it is a bunch of anti-racist stuff. All it is a bunch of gender cult stuff. They don't want anything to do with that. And fundamentally, when you want America's strongest, when you have America's strongest and fittest, and by the way, patriotic men that don't want anything to do with the United States military, that's a problem. Okay, because that means that the military is not only weaker, and if they can get people in, they're going to get people in that are not physically strong while they weaken the physical fitness standards. So they're getting a bunch of people, and I see this stuff on TikTok all the time, and I'm going to start exposing some of this stuff as well. Some of these people that are active duty military members, moonlighting as drag queens, doing OnlyFans, all of this other stuff. Oh, it's out there. It's real. And you're going to start hearing a lot more about that stuff from me. But I say all this to say, if you don't have if the real bros, if the real men that have always served and protected this country, that have always died for this country, that have always been on the front lines for this country, if the real men don't want to serve in the military, and I got to tell you, they do not, you're going to have a problem with recruitment. You're going to have a problem with retention, and you're going to have a huge problem with keeping America safe. All right, Problematics, thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Please go to youtube.com/@can'tcancelrobsmith if you're not there already. If you are there, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the audio version of this podcast on Apple Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts 5 days a week. I'll see you next week.